Imagine an ordinary day of fishing. The most you expect is something bigger than usual. Now imagine that instead of a familiar fish, something comes up from the depths that looks more like a legend, an alien, or a biologist's living nightmare. A body that has the wrong shape, the wrong color, teeth where they absolutely should not be, and skin like rubber, glass, or jelly. And the most unpleasant part is this. You realize that this creature has been living all this time in the very same water where you calmly go swimming. Today, 30 stories about how fishermen all over the world pulled out of the water something that, it would seem, no one should ever have seen. You are with the Top Facts channel. I wish you an enjoyable viewing. Three friends are sitting on the shore and pulling onto the hook yet another candidate for the frying pan. At some moment, instead of the usual glint of scales, there's a flattened, strange body on the line. And the most important thing is the face, where bright red lips stand out. So human-looking that, in the first seconds, the brain simply refuses to believe it. The fish slowly moves its fins, showing that it is alive. The scene is both funny and disturbing. It is very unusual to see on a fish something that resembles a person's makeup. Jokes creep into your head about a fish after plastic surgery and a sea pop star, but the desire to take it in your hands disappears. A fisherman examines the remains of the catch and finds a strange, long-dried specimen. The body is covered with hard bumps, as if with small spines. The color has faded, but the structure is still noticeable. And on the belly there is a large round area that looks like a suction cup. When alive, such fish cling to rocks in the bottom, waiting out currents and even storms. The spiny skin protects them from predators, and the suction cup helps them hold on where others would have been swept away long ago. In a person's hands, it looks like a strange artifact, but behind each such dried thing, there's a whole set of clever adaptations honed over tens of thousands of years. A warm day by the sea, someone is wandering among the coastal rocks and notices a fish lying on a stone. At first glance, nothing special, just another sea creature thrown out by a wave. But on closer inspection, large teeth and a characteristic head shape catch the eye. Such species often belong among the most dangerous if handled carelessly. A cute sea little beast can release a powerful toxin, and one wrong step with a bare foot or one curious finger is already a reason for an urgent trip to the doctor. Appearances are deceptive, especially with those who live where you are used to resting. On one of the Central Asian rivers, a fisherman pulls onto the bank an elongated, slender fish. It stands out at once, neither by the shape of its head, nor by the structure of its fins, nor by the pattern on its body does it resemble the familiar local inhabitants. Not a pike, not a burbo, not a carp. He turns it in his hands for a long time, trying to remember at least some match with pictures from childhood. Without success. Such strangers can get into new rivers together with ships' ballast water, through canals, or even through someone's hobby, when exotic fish are released into freedom. The bank of a quiet river, wet sand, sparse grass. A person notices a motionless body by the water. Dark skin, large teeth, an empty stare. Everything suggests the creature has been dead for a long time. Out of curiosity, he nudges it with a stick, just to take a closer look. The next second is remembered for a long time. The corpse literally explodes with life. The body jerks sharply, the jaws snap, and the aggressive predator that had just been considered dead rapidly goes back into the water. In that moment, all jokes about not alive, not scary, disappear. You understand that by the water, it is better to consider dead only what has already decomposed down to bones. Onto the deck of a fishing vessel, they lift a strange creature. The skin is smooth, almost translucent, as if made of thin wax or wet glass. The eyes are huge, as if accustomed to eternal darkness. No familiar scales, no bright patterns, only a pale body and a gaze in which there is no fear and no aggression, only the emptiness of the depths. Fishermen run their hands over it. The sensation is as if you are touching something that should not exist up here. These are representatives of those very deep water families that are sometimes called ghost fish or chimeras. They live where light never exists at all, and the pressure is so high that any ordinary organism would simply be crushed. When such a creature ends up on the deck, simple fishing turns into a small excursion into a prehistoric world. Another catch breaks the familiar picture even more. With a net, they pull out a creature that looks as if it was drawn by a child, who poorly understands how a fish is even supposed to be built. A soft, shapeless body, sagging features, no normal back, no clear head. In their native depth, such organisms look different. An enormous mass of water literally supports their structure. But at the surface, under our pressure, the body sort of settles, turning them into that very sadly famous blob, or a lump of living jelly. This is a vivid reminder. Even appearance depends on conditions. And what seems to us like ugliness can, in another layer of the world, be the ideal form of life. A quiet day on the beach. People lazily watch the waves. Children build sandcastles. And suddenly one of the vacationers notices a strange shadow in the surf. Long, thin, like a metallic strip. It is not just drifting. It is purposefully moving toward the shore. When the creature comes closer, it becomes visible how it wriggles, like a living silvery belt. No familiar fish shape, no thick back, no normal tail. Only a flexible, flat body that behaves as if the sea decided to throw its own secret onto the shore. One of the men gathers his courage, carefully picks up this ribbon, and turns it back, helping it go into the depths. And only afterward comes the realization they may have been holding in their hands a rare deep-water giant, the kind usually spoken about in legends, disguised as sea serpents. Another fisherman, pulling up a net, at first decides that he has caught a bundle of roots or seaweed. In his hands, the creature looks more like a strange plant from a swamp. No clear fins, no familiar body lines. The texture is like dense jelly. The shape is like a tangled root. But the root slightly moves, and that is enough for a chill to run down the spine. In front of him are not plant leftovers, but a living creature that spends its whole life in conditions where pressure and darkness break the familiar laws. People are used to believing that everything alive must look like in the textbook. But real nature politely reminds us, school pictures are only an approximate translation of its language. During a walk, a man notices in the sand a huge fish that is already starting to decompose. The scales have dulled, the eyes have faded, the mouth is slightly open, as if in a silent attempt to breathe one more time. Everything indicates that it was pulled out, looked at, evaluated, and for some reason left. Maybe it seemed inedible. Maybe the fishermen were too lazy to haul such a weight. Or maybe it was caught just for a photo. Either way, now it is not the master of the depths, but part of the trash on the shore. And that makes the sight especially unpleasant. In front of you is a creature that lived in the water for decades and ended its path alone on the sand. On the bank of a small river, a man pulls out a dark, glossy fish. It moves in his hands, the fins tremble, but it looks somehow alien. It does not resemble a local crucian carp, nor a perch, nor the species familiar since childhood. He examines it for a long time, trying to assign it at least to some family. But everything in it seems not from here, both the shape of the head and the pattern of the scales. Such species sometimes get into new bodies of water together with humans, escaping from private ponds, aquariums, or brought in with live fish. One such stranger is a trifle. But when there are many such guests, the native little river quietly turns into a completely different world. And far from always do the local species find a place in it. On the shore, a man notices in the surf a semi-transparent lump. He pulls it out onto the sand and realizes in front of him is something halfway between a jellyfish, a piece of jelly, and an alien organism. The shape is unclear, the internal structure is almost unreadable, only strange veins and outlines. Under the sun's glare, it looks almost beautiful. But the longer you look, the stronger the feeling that you do not understand at all what exactly you are looking at. A fish? An invertebrate? A larva of something larger? Most of such creatures remain without a name in the minds of witnesses. They simply return you to one simple thought. We live next to a world in which even classification is a luxury. A group of people walks along the seashore and sees a large body in the sand. Dark skin, a rounded torso, fins already deprived of motion. In front of them is a small cetacean that once briskly cut through the waves and now lies on land like a heavy stone. Signs of decomposition show that it has been here for several days. No dramatic scenes, no rescue team, just a quiet personal meeting with a fact. Even the strongest inhabitants of the sea cannot guarantee themselves a long life. Such a sight breaks the romantic image of the free dolphin that we are used to seeing in films and on postcards. The real ocean is arranged much more harshly. During shore fishing, a man pulls a strange fish out of the water. It thrashes in his hands, opens its mouth, showing sharp teeth. No hints, no matches with familiar species. Just a predator that no one expected to see here. For several minutes, the fishermen try to understand who is in front of them. But the more they look, the clearer it becomes. It is better not to play experts. In the end, they carefully lower the catch back into the water, allowing it to leave. Sometimes the wisest reaction of a person is to admit that they do not know something and not try to immediately stamp it with their own understanding. In the USA, one man goes fishing not with a rod, but with a bow. The arrow hits a long, writhing shadow in the water. When he pulls the debichu out, the people around feel uneasy. The body's like a snake's, wet and flexible. The mouth is kruglim, studded with teeth in several rows, like a miniature saw. In blood, this picture looks as if someone brought to life an illustration from a horror film. These ancient parasitic creatures for centuries clung to large fish, biting with a whole disc of teeth into their body and sucking out strength. The appearance here is not for a frightening effect, but for survival. When you look into that circle of teeth, it becomes clear. In evolution, there is no concept of too scary. There is only effective and ineffective. In another episode, fishermen pull onto the deck an unusual fish. It has wide, fan-like pectoral fins, which when spread out look more like wings. The body is covered with hard plates and spikes, and the head is as if in armor. When the fish tries to turn, the impression is created as if a small dragon is crawling across the deck. The company, finding no better description, jokingly calls it the Flying Dutchman. Later they learn that in front of them is a bottom-dwelling species that can sort of walk along the bottom, leaning on its modified fins. But in the moment of the first meeting, no one cares about scientific terms. In such seconds, a person feels not like the master of nature, but like a guest who accidentally peeked behind the curtains. A group walks along the bank of a river and notices a strange fish lying on the sand. At first, it seems dead. One of the men reaches out his hand to ostorojno push it, and at that moment, the carcass jerks sharply. The mouth opens, demonstrating several rows of sharp teeth. People's reaction is immediate: to jump back, to recoil, to start shouting. Then, of course, versions come. A mutant, poisoned water, something from a chemical plant. Most often it is an ordinary predator, just pulled out into a place where no one is used to seeing it. But the psychological effect remains. After that, you're unlikely to calmly walk along the shore barefoot. In another place, fishermen encounter a creature that simultaneously resembles both a snake and a sea legend. A long, flat body, and along the entire back stretches a wavy fin resembling a mane. The creature moves as if someone ojeville a ribbon of fabric. forcing it to bend in 3 dimensions. When it is pulled closer to the surface, large fangs and agromny eyes become visible. Such organisms spend most of their life at a decent depth, where rarely anyone disturbs them. That is why meetings right near the shore always produce a strong impression. An ordinary quiet fishing trip. A man pulls another catch out of the water and freezes. In his hands, he has a fish with an unusual head shape and a spotted coloration. The longer he examines it, the more associations are born, either a brush or a piece of army camouflage, or some kind of experimental breed. The mouth is wide, the eyes are slightly shifted, the body is compact and dense. For someone who has been catching such fish since childhood, this may be a familiar species. But for a person seeing it for the first time, it is a reminder that every area keeps its own oddities. The world is not divided into normal and abnormal. It is divided into familiar and that which we do not yet know about. In an African river, 2 fishermen pull out a rich catch. Most of the fish seems ordinary, but individual specimens make them look closer. One fish has a disproportionately wide mouth. Another has a bright tail and stripes along the body. And suddenly, one of the trophies opens its mouth so wide that you can see an entire battery of sharp teeth. Dim light, wet hands, the shine of scales. All of this creates a very earthly, very real picture. This is not a documentary film and not a picture from an encyclopedia. This is your catch, looking at you with deceptive little daggers in its mouth. In such moments, you understand well why local fishermen from childhood teach children, do not stick your fingers into chiji mouths. In cold northern waters, fishermen lift onto the deck a strange shark-like fish. The body is elongated, the skin is rough like sandpaper. But the main thing is the head. A long, protruding snout, a jaw like a protruding hook, teeth that resemble ancient reptiles more than familiar sea fauna. Such creatures are sometimes called living fossils. They have almost not changed for millions of years, survived dinosaurs and the Smenu of eras, and now suddenly end up on the deck next to plastic boxes and modern tackle. Winter fishing around, snow and silence. The fisherman carefully pulls the line out of the ice hole, expecting to see the familiar debichu for these places. Instead, a thin, slippery fish appears on the surface, which immediately starts writhing like a living rope. The body shines with icy water. The eyes of Nematano follow every movement of the person. In his hands, it constantly tries to escape, twists into rings, resembles either an eel or a snake. For fish living in cold waters, this is an ordinary story. They have their own ways of survival, their own methods of conserving energy. But for a person who is just holding a warm mug of tea, such a rope from an ice hole is a very vivid contrast. Three friends go out onto the water with a simple goal: to rest and, if luck favors them, catch a couple of decent fish. When one of them sets the hook on another bite, no one expects anything special. But the longer he pulls, the more the rod bends. Onto the shore, they drag out a long, heavy predator. Holding it alone is difficult. The body is powerful. The muscles are felt even through the scales. The head is wide. The mouth is like a trap. 3 adult men who have seen a lot in their lives suddenly turn into excited boys. There is a special pleasure in this: to unexpectedly stalk Nutsa with the real master of the local river, whose existence you did not even suspect. While fishing on a rocky shore, a man pulls out a small but very unusual fish. The body is in spots and dots, as if someone special note painted it with camouflage under pebbles. The eyes are large, the mouth is small, the movements are sharp, nervous. Such species spend most of their life literally blending with the bottom. It is enough for them to slightly move their fins, and they are already indistinguishable from a stone. For predators rushing by, they are just an element of the landscape. A person holding this stone in his hands suddenly realizes how many times he could have walked past similar creatures and not even suspected their presence. A hot day, the beach is packed with vacationers, and suddenly someone notices at the very edge of the water a huge dark body. Several men rush into the waves, trying to hold the creature by the tail and sides. A crowd gathers around, children reach closer, adults film on their phones. In front of them is a giant fish that by all rules should have been keeping to a decent depth. But today it ended up a few meters from people who are used to thinking that the sea next to the beach is something like a big swimming pool. Later, they took a boat and released the fish into deep waters. An ordinary fisherman on a rocky shore pulls a small fish out of the water and freezes. Its body shimmers with yellow and orange shades. On the sides, there are spots like on a leopard's skin. It looks not like an inhabitant of a modest body of water, but like an escapee from an expensive aquarium. It is hard to believe that such a creature can live in a muddy, unremarkable river near a village or a small city. But that is exactly how the modern world works. People transport animals around the planet, breed them in uncharacteristic places, release them into nature, and now local waters are decorated with bright lights that were never here. This small fish is a living symbol of how tightly the global and local worlds have intertwined, and of how little we control the consequences. All these stories about strange, frightening, beautiful, and incomprehensible creatures add up to one simple conclusion. We are used to thinking that we know who lives in our rivers and seas. Pike, crucian carp, bream, perch, pike perch. Familiar names create a feeling of order, but as soon as the next fisherman pulls out of the water something that does not fit into this familiar scheme, the world politely reminds us this is only the top layer. Under it are depths where their own laws reign, their own logic of forms and colors. And every time a living creature comes out of the darkness that seems to us a monster or a mystery, it is not a mistake. It is simply another part of the huge picture that we have not yet reached. If you liked it and you want to see the next part, something similar, then write about it in the comments, like it, subscribe to the channel, and right now write the keyword rocket in the comments. That way I will know that you watched to the very end. Thank you all very much for watching, and next, watch one of the 2 videos that appeared.